Chapter 5, the Quranic Generation. With the advent of modernity, Muslims haven't just faced challenges to the integrity and reliability of the Quran as revelation. The era of European colonialism resulted in the final political breakdown of the Muslim world. Muslim rulers fell under the domination of European countries. Then, at the end of World War I, the Ottoman Empire and the last Muslim caliph in succession with Muhammad was dissolved. An institution 1,500 years old disappeared, and Islam no longer had a political center. With the end of the Ottoman Empire, Islamic civilization lost its focus, and Muslims have faced a renewed challenge to identify the source of a normal, universal Islam. For most Muslims, the loss of a political center of the Muslim world led to a search for new centers around which Muslims could rebuild their civilization. Some made efforts to rebuild political centers. They seek to create Islamic states. As I speak, however, none of these efforts has led to real success, and there is no political entity regarded by Muslims worldwide as some kind of civilizational center or political center. Some, instead of seeking a single Islamic state, turn to the history of the Islamic movement to try to find a civilizational center in something other than political terms. For some, the center is the fully orbed civilization of the great Abbasid dynasty. It was geographically extensive, culturally pluralistic, refined in the arts, politically and legally sophisticated. The Abbasids seem at first glance to be a compelling model for a modern Islamic civilization that could stretch over many different nations and cultures. Yet for many contemporary Muslims, the Abbasids were actually a model of syncretism and corruption. They were too diverse. These Muslims seek a greater purity, and so they go back further in history, even beyond the Umayyad dynasty and even beyond the division of Sunni and Shiite. Instead of a political dynasty, these Muslims focus on the period of the rightly guided caliphs. These were the first successors of Muhammad, and they, by their piety and political wisdom, held the world together. Abu Bakr, Uthman ibn Khattab, Uthman ibn Affan, and Ali ibn Ali Talib are seen as the exemplary leaders who, with Muhammad, are called the Quranic Generation. All were contemporaries of Muhammad, and with him they shared the revelation of the Quran as a constant context for their decision-making. Thus, a radical reformer like Sayyid Qutb, who dismisses out of hand contemporary Islam and great Islamic empires, will still offer the Quran, Muhammad, and the rightly guided caliphs as the model for those who wish to rebuild an Islamic civilization. Yet while the distinctive value of the Quranic generation is universally recognized, drawing the line between normative and merely admirable in that generation has proven difficult. All of the caliphs lived in a time of near constant war, including 2 civil wars that led to the deaths of Abu Bakr and of Ali. And whatever the extent of these men's piety, none governed more than a tribal confederation, and that, with only the most idealistic lenses, could be considered a state. Of course, there's another possible historic solution to finding a center for Islamic civilization, one that Protestant Christians will recognize. What about returning to just the Quran? But narrowing the Muslim ideal to the Quran has been uniformly rejected by Muslims. The Quran cannot be separated from the Prophet, whose character is the Quran, and the Prophet's normative interpretation of the Quran cannot be known except through his sayings and actions. And these sayings and actions were passed down to Muslims through his closest companions and family, who also fixed the final version of the Quran. So Muslims cannot and do not disentangle their revelation from the history of its transmission and the interpretation by the Rashidun, the rightly guided caliphs. That means that the Islamic ideal inevitably includes not merely belief in God, but belief in the laws of God as they developed through Muhammad, the rightly guided caliphs, and onward in history. You simply can't have a civilization with just the Quran. We'll look at those laws in the next video.